Okay, number 3. So this whole episode here is really about the client relationship, because what we just talked about with design is going to be really important for how you deliver a project to a client and how you really shine in that process. But the third one I'm going to talk about here is getting confident on client call. This is so important. You want to go into client calls and be the one asking the questions. What do they say? The person leading the conversation is the one who's asking the questions, not the one who's answering the questions. So in this part of the process, you really want to get on the phone. I personally try to be very personable for the first few minutes. So, hey, how are you? Where are you located? Where are you from? Tell me more about yourself. Tell me more about your business. Try to find out some of those details. Not 10 minutes of that, 2 or 3 minutes. Once that's settled and we're friendly, I want to start the relationship with a value of connection before going into all the business stuff. I don't want to go directly into the business stuff in most cases. Then from there, we go into the questions. So tell me, what even brought you to this point to look for a website design? Depending on how they found you or whatever the process is, ask some type of question that forms in that way. Then you're going to get an idea of what they're looking for. Are they looking for a website designer? Are they looking for someone to build their site? Are they looking for something to be built quickly? Are they looking for design help? Are they looking for confidence? A lot of clients are looking for confidence. They could build their site, but they don't know if it looks right, feels right. They don't know what questions to ask. They feel insecure. So they want a professional like you to come in and support them and show them clear direction. This is great for website design. This is great for your business. This is great for what you're trying to accomplish. And those are really helpful. Those are really, really helpful in the process as you get confident on client phone calls to understand and ask questions that you're going to get answers for at this level, but you could read what they're saying below that. On top of that, you could also clarify a few things. Who's leading the project? What's their timeline? So I personally, when I'm working on a smaller project, want to work with one person. I don't want to get looped into an email chain with 7 people, because what ends up happening is those 7 people don't all know what's happening and where things are at, and one person sends their own notes and another person sends their own. I don't do that. I have a clear process, I have a clear system, and I have one point of contact. That is the ideal. Sometimes it deviates a little bit, so it's not like a perfect rule, but in these cases, you really identify how to make this process work in the smoothest way. One of my biggest failed projects was once I got into working with the team, 7 people were contacting me. It was actually 4, but a bunch of people were contacting me, and they all had different expectations, and they didn't understand the platform. We were building on Squarespace. They didn't understand the platform and how it worked. And they said, our call that we finally ended the relationship, one of the things they said was, well, it must be a stupid platform if it doesn't work that way. And it's like, yeah, you could say that, but it's just because you have no clear sense of how it works that you're judging it by this one thing that you just discovered because it's not there for you. And there are a lot of things that don't work perfectly on Squarespace that work on different platforms and things like that. But in this case, what we were building to was just a disaster of a project because no one had clear expectations of where the project was headed and how it was going to get there, built on the flow that we were building on. It was like they were on one river and we were traveling another river. So I really emphasize that in the beginning, trying to very much so identify these things. And you could also identify if it's a client you don't want to work with. They could sound over demanding. They could sound very audacious. They could sound like they've never done this before. And so they could have a lot of questions. They might not be ready to start yet. And so there's a lot of factors. And this is a great way to filter through those things. And one of the questions I love to ask, they're going to say, so how much does something like this cost? And actually, before I start talking about this, one thing I do want to say is, if you're looking for help on this, there's a ton of great content by The Future on YouTube. So just go to YouTube and type in The Future without an E, Futur, and look up videos on how to manage client relationships. This is where I learned how to ask this question, and it's a really good question. It's a really good question, and also you start in a very confident tone when you come with this. But when you come on the phone and you're asking all these questions and you're going through the process, you have to ask on this first phone call, not later, first phone call. So what's your budget for this project? Now, some clients may come back and say, I don't really know. I've never worked on a project like this. How much does something like this often design cost? And there's a few ways you can take that conversation. One of the ways is you can go back to the client and say, well, let me ask you, have you ever worked on anything like this before? Have you ever done a website, a logo online before? Have you ever worked with a freelancer like this before? Yeah, maybe once or twice. And oh, tell me how that went. Learn more about that part of the process. See what they say about that. But overall, you want to get the client to talk about money before you talk about money. It's very much like how they do jobs and salaries. Sometimes they show the salaries, and I think more and more jobs are showing the salaries, but it's very healthy. It's a healthy relationship to say, how much are you looking to be spending on this? Because the thing with website design, and this is the example I use, is it's kind of like chandelier. I actually think I got this from the future, but it's kind of like a chandelier. Say you're redecorating your home and you're going to get a new chandelier for your kitchen. You could go to Home Depot and spend $200 on a chandelier. Or you could go to a really boutique store and spend $20,000 on a chandelier. Both of them are going to do the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Both of them are going to light the room. However, one of them, the finish, the touch, the elegance is going to outshine the cheaper one. And so with that in mind, you want to keep yourself ahead of the curve by asking a client, what are you looking to spend on a project like this? What is your budget? Because when you have a sense of budget, you could then identify what the project scope is going to look like for that client. Now, let's say you have your pricing on your website. The client may come to you and say, I was looking at your second package, or I was looking at your third package, or something like that. And so you have that conversation identified, but you want to make sure you find out what package you're looking at so that when you send a proposal, you know how much to send them in the cost, so the cost is not a surprise. One of the tricks that I did was if a client said their project was about 10, like their budget's 9K. Let's just say it's like 9,500. What I would do is I'd send a proposal that would show them a range from, let's say, 7,500, no, probably 7,950, right under 8K, to 9,500. And so I'd put range in between there. And then I put the ideal number that I wanted for the total project. And so it'd probably be 8,950. So right below 9,500. So again, it just kind of shows like a deal almost. So if they said, oh, our max is 9,500, well, now I'm saying, hey, it possibly could be 8,950. Then when we're in the project, I'll get a deposit, 50% or whatever to begin, something at like 50%. I'll get a deposit. Once the project begins and we're flowing, depending on what the client needs and how many revisions we do and how the process is, I may go through the process and the client may finish the project easy and it might be simple and I might charge him less. Or the client may be so satisfied. In a different case, we work really hard on it. We get the right setup, look, feel, everything. The client loves the website. They have no problem paying $9,500. So you give yourself a little bit of flexibility by putting up to $9,500, but then putting in the actual dollar amount for the project a little bit lower. And at the end of the day, it gives you flexibility on deciding that final price range with the client. I've never had a client question that. I've never had a client see it and question it. So right before that bottom line where it says the total price, I put range is between this number and this number. And then in between those two numbers, I find an ideal number that I like, that I'm comfortable with, and I place that in there. So now it gives them a range of different numbers to play with. It's all the psychology of money, right? You really clarify to yourself where you're willing to work, but also to the client that there's some space. That, hey, if we do this project quickly, efficiently, and like there's not a lot of back and forth, 7K is actually, or 7,950 is very doable. And you might save $2,000 on this project that you can invest in advertising or an email marketing campaign or something else. But in this entire process, you've now, in a very fun way, made it very clear on how this is going to work, how it's going to operate, how things are going to form, how they're going to feel, all of that with the client. And you're coming from a very confident place. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you're looking for a specific tutorial, please check out our channel. And if you can't find it, let us know in the comments below. What do you need help with to develop your site to make it effective and better for all your users? Finally, sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a great way to stay up to date with anything happening on Squarespace, new features, new tutorials that we post, new features for SEO or updates on SEO, any of that stuff that will help you be more effective. Our newsletter is a great way to stay connected with that as updates come. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.